everybody. Welcome back to our channel. This is Melanie and Laura with A Creatively Crafted Life. Today we're bringing you something a little bit different, a scrapbook page, or rather a pocket page. So this is my project that I'm working on this year, and I'm doing something with a website called captureyour365.com. And it's basically a monthly prompt system that gives you different words for each day of the month. And the idea is you go out and take a picture of something that captures that particular prompt. And I've decided that for 2017, I'm going to do this every day and basically come up with different images that I can then use in my pocket pages. So what you see here is me just kind of getting a bunch of supplies together, and I like to assemble a bunch of things when I start so I don't have to get up and move around. Laura, are you familiar with pocket pages at all?
I am. Do you usually draw it out like that on a piece of paper so that you know how you're laying it out?
Right. So I find the pocket pages themselves are a little slippery.
Yeah.
And because they're clear, you can't really see where the clearly defined lines are. So I just started doing this recently just to help me lay everything out. So it seemed to work pretty good.
Yeah, I've seen them before, and I've seen them done, and I think I've actually seen yours, but I just hadn't ever seen the grid. That's a pretty smart way to do that, to be able to lay them out like that.
Yeah, I'd seen another YouTuber who had done it, and I thought, what a great idea, just to help, configure things. So what you see here is I've actually pre-sorted a number of cards from one of the Project Life kits that I'm using. I'm using two main core kits. We'll put them both in the description below so that you know which ones I'm using. And I use them interchangeably. So whatever works for the photos that I have for that given week, that's what I'm putting together here.
So what did you start this at the beginning of the year? So this is week 11. So this would be what, like March or April? Or
yeah, something? I think it's like March 12th to 18th or something like that. So yes, I'm very far behind. But I'm not a big subscriber to the need to be caught up. And you often hear that word. A lot of project lifers will say, I'm so far behind, I'm not caught up. The way I look at it is I like to craft, and I do what I want to do when I want to do it. And eventually it'll get done. So
then you'll end up with the 52 weeks at the end.
Yeah. So not only do I do the pocket pages, I also intermix regular scrapbook pages. So regular 12 by 12 scrapbook pages. And in this given week, at the beginning, I had a number of photos that I printed out, and there was a few that I put aside. And those are ones that I'm going to do regular scrapbook pages with. So usually they're something that I have a bigger story to tell. And so...
Do you tend to stick with the prompts that they give you for the 365, or do you use them kind of however you feel? And is it a prompt per week, or is it a prompt per day?
It's a prompt per day.
Okay.
It's a prompt per day. And they're words like contrast or vintage. Those are two of the words that were on here, or currently loving, where I stand. I think those are all ones from this given week. So I'm a little bit liberal. The idea is you do a picture a day. I do take probably a picture day because I take a lot of photos, but I mix up the prompts. So I look at the whole month, and whatever prompt works for the photos that I've taken, that's what I'll use. And every now and then I'll be short and I borrow from a different week. So I don't have hard and fast rules as far as that goes. But it's fun. It's also really helped me with my fitness. So this year I tried to incorporate some more walking. And so this is a really fun way when I'm walking to actually look for things to take photos of that meet a certain prompt. For instance, in the bottom corner there's a vintage car. And one of the prompts in the month of March was the word vintage. And I was racking my brain, like, what am I going to take a picture of that's vintage, right? I don't have a lot of antiques or anything like that in my house. And I don't have a lot of vintage people in my life at the moment. As I was going for a walk one day, the car just appeared. So it really was a prompt for me to talk about, how I'm enjoying my walking, and how I can mix these two things together.
So you're writing a card right now. Do you tend to do a lot of writing on these, or not very much? Because I've seen some where people are very writing heavy.
Yeah, they do a lot of journaling and stuff like that. It depends on the story and what I feel I need to take. Like, for instance, the card in the middle on the left, the pink card with the flowers. I mean, it's a picture of a flowering tree. I really don't have much to say about it other than I thought it was really striking. So I'll probably just put a couple words down for that. But the card that I was just writing on there, that actually was about the movie Beauty and the Beast, which we went and saw together.
Right, yeah.
And
so my name's in your book?
Your name's in my book. You've got a special place.
I'm Melanie famous.
There you go. So I just talked about, how I really love the animated version, and I had high hopes for the live version of the show, and how much I really did enjoy it. So. The other thing I'm trying to do this year is use some of the different items that I have in my scrapbook stash that I've never used before. If you stick around in the scrapbooking, crafting / whatever paper crafting world, you tend to accumulate a lot of supplies faster than you actually use them.
In a short amount of time, too.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're always putting out new products and stuff. And
there's always a must-have item, and I have to have it now because what if it goes away later?
Exactly. I can't find it. It's like the end of the world.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm a part of my goals this year was to use 50 items from my scrapbooking stash that I've never used before. And so one of them is I have quite a few of these roller stamps, and that's why I put them out. I was like, I'm going to use at least one of these.
You have to be over the 50 by now.
Oh, yes. Because I made such a concentrated effort, I don't even know what number I'm at. Probably about 200 or 300 items. So,
and you keep adding items to your
well, we don't look at that.
Inventory.
We don't look at all the new stuff that I've bought, but yeah.
You'll
it's
have
all
to
fun,
quadruple
right?
your goal for next year.
Yeah, for sure. And then it's kind of funny because I'll reuse things that I've used before, and I'm like, oh, I can't count that one. But it was actually a good prompt for me to, go through my stuff and say, okay, what haven't you used, and bring it out so that it's front and forward, so that you're encouraged to use it. As you can see here, I put out a lot of other supplies, and as I go through this, you'll see that I actually don't use very many of them.
So do you tend to, I've noticed your style when you're doing cards, you layer various elements on them. Do you tend to do that a lot with your scrapbooking pages? Like, are you more on the embellishment side or less? And does it depend on if you're doing something like a pocket page or a standard scrapbook page?
So with the pocket pages, I like to keep things a little bit more flat, but I don't have hard and fast rules. So if there's something I love and I think it makes sense, if it's really super bulky, I'll actually put it on the outside of the page pocket. But mostly for pocket pages, I put a little bit. Regular 12 by 12 scrapbook pages, I would say I probably put a lot of paper on, I guess, maybe. I'm always changing my style, so it's hard to pinpoint.
Well, and you've been doing this for a long time. How many years have you been
I think
paper crafting?
Paper crafting, yeah. I think it was 1992 I went to a party. So now I've dated myself. Yes, I'm
That's
that
okay.
old.
You could have been, 5 when you went
yeah.
to the party, right?
Yeah, it was back in, for those of you that have been around for a while, it was a Creative Memories party, which I know that they disappeared for a while, but I do think they're back in business again. But I went to that party and it was like, whoa, this is what I like. And ironically, I started off with a pack of 24 mixed cardstock and some stencils.
Oh my gosh.
And that's it.
So as someone who is newer to all of this, and you'll hear me say that a lot because that's my excuse for why I mess up when I'm doing things, but for someone who's newer at that, who's starting out now, a paper pack and stencils does not seem like that
very
much because now I have so many options, right? And I have bought all of those options thanks to Melanie and all of the other YouTubers out there.
So we're joining the pack, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it really wasn't. But if you go back and look at my scrapbook pages from then, we did a lot of cutting out of images. So your photos were often shaped photos. So you'd have like a star shaped photo or a circle photo or, balloons or, that kind of thing. You did a lot of paper borders, a lot of make your own embellishments. So the crafting world or the scrapbooking world has changed significantly over the years. So as far as the pocket page goes, my basic process is I'll go sort through, pick out some cards that I think will work. And then I just kind of figure out where to lay them out. Earlier you would have noticed I shifted things around a little bit. So just to give you some idea, you see the top right and the bottom left have 2 black cards. So I wanted to balance those out against each other, although I end up covering up most of the black. But that was the initial thought. Also on the right bottom, there's a little bit of a check gingham kind of print on there in pink. And then the other card with the flowering tree on the middle on the left also has a gingham check. So I didn't want those to be right beside each other, so I did space those out as well. But there's a lot of black on the page. And I tried to make sure that it's spread out through all of it. You'll also notice that I'm using the Dymo label maker, the old school.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. I think it gives it a nice little interest. I really like that. Is that something you already had, or did you buy one?
I bought it for this year, for this scrapbook.
Because I know you bought a typewriter as well, right?
Yes, I just recently bought an old 1960 typewriter or something like that. But so this is old school label maker, right? We all had these in the 1980s, 80s, 70s, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what I thought would be really cool is to put the prompts for those words on each of the photos that it relates to. And it's going to be consistent throughout the album. So that it's very easily identifiable that's what I'm doing there.
Yeah, I really like that a lot. And it gives it, I like vintage a lot, and it gives it a nice little vintagey look, but it also just makes it stand out from the rest of it. So the fact that it's the prompts just really...
Yeah, and there's a little bit of texture to it. Mm-hmm. Remember how it kind of gives that embossed look or whatever?
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. The other thing you'll notice, I use this little Fiskars trimmer. I have a big Caterpillar...
It's one of the newer paper cutters.
Yeah,
with the light, right?
Yeah, it's one of those rotary cutters, and it's cut 12-inch paper. But what I find with the pocket pages, because you're dealing with typically 4x6 or smaller, it's kind of nice to have a smaller trimmer. Now this trimmer I've had probably since 1992, which just goes to show you how good a brand Fiskars is, that it's still cutting at this point in time.
Yeah.
So once I go through, lay out all the cards, kind of figure out where I want the images to go, like the pictures, and, add the labels, do whatever journaling, then the fun part comes, and that's embellishing. And so that little jar of bits and bobs in there, so these are typically things that I've almost used up a pack of paper or a pack of stickers, or I only have 1 or 2 things left of something. I'll just toss it in the bowl, and the idea is hopefully that I will try and use those up.
So those are from different packages. It's not.
It's all over
the same, right?
Yeah, okay. Exactly. I think in there were some tags that I got from a dollar spot at Target. There was some stickers in there from I think one of the Chamel lines. There's some other chipboard pieces from a Heidi Swapp thing. So just little bits and bobs that just aren't worth putting away.
Right.
But I do want to still use them up because I do like them. So that's something that I try to keep on my desk and then kind of just sort through. The Project Life, or what is it? I think it's called 52 I can't remember what it's called now. It's the Project Life 52, I think. Fresh edition. Don't quote me on that. It'll be in the bottom. They have one of those cards for each week, a number card. So it'll tell you week 11, week 12, whatever. And it's just a basic white card with the number on it, and I like a little bit more color.
Right.
So I just been cutting that out using one of the MFT dies, and it fits pretty good. And then I just switch up the card every week. So.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that I really like about the pocket scrapbooking is that it gives you a kind of a set framework, and you can embellish as much or as little as you like. So it's, I've seen some that are pretty plain, and they've got the cards, they put the cards in, and they do the pictures, and they might, they'll do a lot of journaling. But then I've also seen more that are like yours, where that you put a little bit more into it. So, and that's what's nice about this type of medium.
And actually, any type of scrapbooking is like that. Like right now, the tendency in the scrapbooking world is mixed media and, lots of layers and lots of embellishments. But really, you don't have to do that. If, there's nothing wrong with having a very simple page, right? The important part is, writing down what the stories are that relate to the photos that you have, and not to compare yourself to everybody else as to what they do. And it's what do you enjoy? For me, a lot of this is the process. Like, I like playing around. Like, as you'll see here, I'm moving these little acrylic pieces and hearts, bits, and, and I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's just fun. Like, it's just, time disappears as I'm playing around with things. And it's fun to, poke around and see what else can I use and use up. Like, for instance, I've got some chipboard hearts on there. I mean, chipboard, now you can get chipboard, but it's all printed.
Right.
But back, I don't know, probably maybe 7-8 years ago, you got it all plain or naked chipboard, right? And the idea was you can paint it and do whatever you want to it. And so I've got tons of that left over. So how do I incorporate that now, with today's fashions and today's styles? Well, gold is really big, right? So I actually use some of that gold Viva Decor paint, and I just apply that on top of the chipboard, and it looks completely different. I haven't done that yet, but I will be doing that shortly. So I've got little bits and pieces like at the top, in the top card, those acetate pieces I believe were, it's either from Studio Calico or Freckled Fawn, I think. It's one of those two. But the important thing is not so much what I'm using, but just, think outside of the box. Go look at what you have. You may not have pink acetate stars, but maybe you have, pink acetate hearts, or maybe you just have blank acetate that you can cut into stars using your die cut machine. Mm-hmm. That's the point I'm trying to make. Tiny attacher. Do you have one of those?
No, I don't, actually.
It's a really tiny stapler.
Oh.
So the staples are quite teeny tiny. It's one of my favorite tools.
I was wondering what that was because I kept seeing you use it, and I thought, what?
Yeah. I like using it for adhering small things sometimes instead of using glue or whatever. So in this case, I stapled the wood veneer piece onto that card. Speaking of that image, that actually was just taken straight off the internet, and I just printed it like a regular photo. So if you do have, something you want to document and you don't have photos, you can always go and check the internet. It's amazing what's out there.
You can find anything. Sometimes things you don't want to see.
So I'm using the tiny attacher again to staple the acetate pieces. Acetate's one of those tricky things to adhere because it's see-through. So, you don't want to see the glue. So a staple is really good. Plus it adds an extra layer of texture on there. Now I got to just do a final check. Let's see if everything looks good. Am I happy with it? So now we're going to take the gold paint. It's paint, but it's not really paint. It's like a moussey.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, it's like, they call it paint, but it's like a moussey texture.
And who is that by?
This is by Viva Decor, but Tonic Studios has brought out, I think it's called Nouveau Mousse.
Oh, that's what it looks like. Because I know I had seen something like that, and I wasn't sure when I saw you using it. I wasn't sure if that's what it was.
Yeah, I love using it for chipboard because it's not very messy. I mean, I'm just using my finger. It's not gloopy, so it doesn't, go all over the place, and it doesn't really absorb too much into the chipboard, so you don't have to worry about it peeling and splitting if it's too wet. That's all I'm doing here is just applying that and then letting it dry. But I think they look pretty good when they're done. They're shiny, nice and shiny. I think they look just as good as if they were like foiled or something already. The other thing to keep in mind, I did keep the protective layer when you first open the jar. You know how it's got that sealed layer on there? I do keep it in the jar. I didn't rip it completely off, and I do make sure that when I close it with that down. I've heard some people say that it will dry out, so I don't know if it'll work, if it makes a difference, but I figure it can't hurt. I'm just showing you the different cards here. That one there I made using a scrap piece of paper. I had a pattern paper that had like a chalkboard look, and it had different sayings on it, so I just used a little piece of that left over. It looks pretty pretty much like we're finished with this page.
So that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us, and we'll just we'll end on some close-up shots of some of the cards that Melanie put together, or some of the little pocket pages. And as always, make sure to check below for all of the supplies, and also link to our website if you want to see more information on everything. Thanks again for joining us, and happy crafting!